All right, so let's focus now on what's going on in Johannesburg. City Power and emergency services have been responding to a fire in an underground tunnel in the CBD today. The fire has left Selby and surrounding areas without power. City Power says the outage occurred after a fire in underground tunnels tripped two main lines. Let's get an update from our senior reporter, Barry Bateman, who's on scene right now. Barry, thank you so much for joining us. So it's been a very dramatic few hours. What is the current situation?
Yeah, good afternoon, Sally. Well, that blaze was just a couple of hours ago. We saw those plumes of black smoke coming from underground. Well, now it is mostly steam, so they've managed to get to the firefighters, have managed to get to the source of that blaze and put enough water on it to put it out. So let me just show you quickly. I'm going to step away so my colleague can talk and show you that manhole you're looking at there is where we were watching just an hour ago firefighters coming in and out of, with black smoke all around them. Well, the fight has now shifted to across the road. They've moved to this other manhole, which we understand is closer to the fire. So initially it was about 50 meters down the road where the firefighters went in front of the Johannesburg Magistrates Court. They fought their way or crawled their way all the way up to where we are, putting out the fire as they progressed. And now they're onto the last stretch, I suppose you can put it like that. Being underground, we've got the water cables, the lines going into the manholes, as well as additional oxygen lines as backup for those firefighters as they battle this fire. But as it stands now, steam coming out of those holes, the situation is certainly under control.
So, Barry, what is happening underground? You've explained what the firefighters have had to do. I understand the blaze is out, but there is still a team underground. What exactly are they doing? How dangerous is it currently?
Well, it certainly is as dangerous as it was earlier. You can imagine you've got that hot steam that you see coming out of the hole now. So the temperatures, still very high. We've spoken to firefighters here and they've explained, firstly, earlier when that black smoke was around, I mean, this is extreme conditions. You can't see your hand in front of your face until you get up close to where the blaze is. We saw them, the firefighters, taking down some specialist equipment, a device that looks like a pair of binoculars, but except one lens on the front. This was thermal imaging, so it was so dark you can't actually see the fire, but the firefighters are using thermal imaging technology to be able to locate the hot spots, and using that be able to put the water onto it. You can imagine as well, with the kind of toxic fumes coming off the plastic and other material burning under there, you wouldn't be able to go in there without specialist breathing apparatus. We've seen the firemen go under, of course, with the tanks on their back, but also attached to additional backup tanks which are up here on the surface. So extreme conditions. It's hot, there's very little oxygen, you can't see, and of course as you get closer to that blaze you would feel the intensity from the fire itself.
Now, Barry, you were saying earlier that it's not clear what the cause of this fire is. You're just describing conditions that are still very dangerous. Are the fire authorities confident that there's not going to be a sudden reignition of this fire, or has that been completely ruled out at this hour?
Well, I think that's what they're doing now, Sally. You're seeing that steam coming out of the ground. We see active firefighting that takes place until you get the blaze that's extinguished. But you have what's called dampening down, which is the part where you just put additional water onto the area where the fire was burning to ensure that there's no embers and that there's no flare-up. What they are doing as well, Sally, and I've spoken to the firefighters, is that these tunnels underneath us, they go in several different directions. As you can imagine, it's a network underground that connects the city with electricity, internet cables, there's all sorts of infrastructure under there. What they're doing, using that infrared technology or the thermal imaging, they're looking up these different corridors and your pathways underground to rule out the possibility that this fire hasn't spread up a different cable or up one of these other paths. So far it appears to be contained to this area.
So, Barry, talk to us about the impact. We know that hundreds of people phoned City Power saying, my power is out. Could you talk to us about when power is likely to be restored and what has to happen? Because we're still seeing we aren't seeing City Power officials underground yet restoring cables, are we?
No, we're not, and it is the big question. If you're the person affected by this fire, you want to know when is the power coming back. If you're caught in the traffic just a few blocks from me, you're asking when is the power going to be come back, because the traffic's going to be here tomorrow morning and the next day. So it is the big question, but I was asking the City Power's Isaac Mangena this very issue on the areas affected and what's going to be happening in the coming hours from now. Take a listen.
Most of the areas that are affected are within the city of Johannesburg CBD and most of the suburb towards the east of Johannesburg, Yombuema, Penn, and also the areas to the west, south of CBD, including Mayfair, Fortsburg, and some of the areas. But we are trying to basically look at our drawings to see where the network runs, so that we may be able by tomorrow midday, we may be, if anything goes according to plan, restore some of those that have been affected through our backfeeding system, because we've got John Ware substation this side and we've got Central on the other side. We've already isolated John Ware, and then we've got Central substation, which we can always play around to see if we can restore some of the areas towards End Street and also Maboning areas with that option.
It sounds to me like it's going to be a long night ahead. There's much to be assessed still and much to be repaired. Barry, I'm sure we're going to be speaking to you later this evening to tell us what is actually developing. And of course, the big question, how did a fire like this start? That is an important question, because only when we know that we can be sure that it won't happen again. Thank you so much. That's reporting live from the Johannesburg CBD eNCA senior reporter, Barry Bateman.